Hey guys. All right, so we are back with week 7 of our Art of Healing journaling. Sorry I missed last week, but here is the video. So thanks for being patient. I decided since life has kind of been crazy, I was going to do one on how we have to just take life by the drop. So I'm using my Delusions journal, which is 5x7 in size. And I generally will glue the pages together. So I skip a page in my journal. I started with some light blue ink from, I can't remember the company. I think it's, I'd have to look. But anyway, all the supplies are listed below. So if you need to know that. Oh, it's a Stampin' Up! Ink. And so it's the light blue, and then I just used my baby wipe and I spreaded it all over the page so that it would just give it a light color. And then I took a darker blue and went over that with my baby wipe and just added some darker blue in places throughout it and got it to where I liked it. It turned out really good. Always make sure you get the spine if you're using this kind of a journal, because it's hard to get into that area. So then I took this little stamp and I used the same kind of inks, the same color ink, but I double stamped it. So I stamped onto a page first and then stamped it onto my background page so that it wouldn't be too dark, and then just made some texture on the page with that because I wanted to have a little bit more depth to the page. So I went ahead and added these dots all over the page. And like I said, I did use my light and blue ink to do both of those layers. And then I just drew some clouds just on some white cardstock. Just hand drew them and cut them out. Sorry, I went a little bit off camera here during my cutting. I tend to forget that I'm recording. But I did bring it back in just a second so you could see. But anyway, y'all know how to cut with scissors, so that shouldn't be an issue. So I cut out the clouds and got them ready. They're gonna go across the top of the page. So what I did was I scored it just with my fingernail so I knew where the seam was, cut it in half, and then I took my Ranger matte medium and stuck that down on the page. Remember, I like, when I'm using my big brush pens, I like to use a non-porous surface. So I coated the tops of the clouds as well, because I'm gonna shade those with my big brush pen later. And so I took the Ranger Distress Medium, put it on there, glued them down with it, and then went over the top of the clouds with the Distress Medium to keep it porous, or non-porous, sorry. And you're gonna need to make sure it's really, really dry. You don't wanna ruin any of your pens. So make sure it's dry, and then I just trimmed around the edges so that it would fit the page. I went to start outlining the clouds with my black Sharpie, but then I realized that I wanted to make sure it was totally dry before I did that, so I waited. These are just some stamps that I had already previously stamped and cut out. There's some flower images and then this little rain boot image. I think it's a Stampability stamp. And I just stamped them on some cardstock, cut them out, and I'm arranging them on the page the way that I want them to go. And then the same thing, I'm gonna do the Distress Medium and use that to put them down, and then I'm gonna coat them all over the top with this Distress Medium.
I'ma pick you up in a Cadillac like a gentleman, bring it glamour back, keep it real to real in the way I feel. I could walk you down the aisle, I wanna do you like Michael, I wanna kiss you like Prince. Let's get it on like Marvin Gaye, like Hathaway, write a song for you like this. You're over my head, I'm out of my mind.
Okay, so once I got those laid down and situated on the page, I went ahead and drew out my, obviously I had to dry it first, and then I went and drew out the stems for my flowers so that they were going into my rain boots. And I used my big brush pen and realized that it was not working very well, so I went ahead and got some of my Delusions green paint and just took a paintbrush and just painted those lines with my paintbrush. And then later, since everything else is in black, outlined in black, I will outline the stems as well later. I'm going to give them time to dry. And then I used my big brush pens and I just started shading in my rain boots. And I started with the yellow. I just simply just draw over it with the pen and then just smear it with my finger. Once it dries, it does dry permanent. So you can go through and play with it. And then once it's where you like it, you can run a heat gun over it and make sure it's really nice and dry, and then it will be permanent. So I did that shading with the yellow and then the purple, and I just darkened up the edges a little bit with the same color purple. And then I took some orange and started highlighting the yellow boot so that it would have some darker highlights in it. And you can just highlight wherever you feel, you know, wherever your eye leads you to highlight. There's no rhyme or reason really to it. This isn't an art piece, it's just an art journal, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And just continue to do that throughout the whole design. And then when you're happy with it, then you can let it dry and it will dry permanent. So I went ahead and finished all my flowers and all of my leaves and everything with my stuff. And then I decided that my clouds were dry enough to go ahead and start outlining them with the pen. And then I took my gray brush pen, since it's supposed to be rain clouds, and just highlighted the clouds with the gray, just enough to where they looked not quite so bright white. And then I went around the edges with my blue brush pen and just kind of gave it a little bit of a border. It's really, really subtle, but just enough to kind of framed it out just a little bit. And then of course I went and took my white gel pen and started doing my highlights on each of my elements on the page, and lightened up some of the flowers on the boots and the petals, and highlighted around the edges so that it would just give it a little bit more dimension. And then I went ahead and outlined my stems with my black Sharpie as well, so that all the elements, including the clouds and the stems, all had the black lines around them like my stamped images did. And that's how that turned out. And then I decided it needed a puddle, so I went ahead and added a puddle for the boots to be standing in. And the same thing with that, I used my big brush pen, the blue one, and then I outlined it with my Sharpie, which at that point was really giving me a fit, so I switched pens to my little brush pen in black and did some highlights in the puddle and with my gel pen. And I went ahead and printed out my title on my computer because I didn't have the stamps that I wanted from a font standpoint. So I went ahead and did that, and then I went around them with my ink pad just to give them a little bit of dimension, and stuck them down with my matte medium and got that laid out on there. It says, "Take life by the drop and color in your boots." It's been a pretty rough couple weeks here, so I decided this was a great layout for us to do this week. I took this silver glitter pen, and it's glitter glue, and I poked it on, or I put dots on there, and then I took a pen and just drug up with it. It was just like a little sewing pin needle, and it makes them in the shape of a drop. And then I highlighted and connected them to my clouds with my white gel pen. Then I realized that you couldn't really see the white dots, so I went back with my black brush pen and went ahead and added the dots in black because I just thought that looked better. So that is Take Life by the Drop and Color in Your Boots. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys are going to try it. And we will be back again soon with another art journaling video. Here's some close-ups.